All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We've got a lot of teachers here today live that have been involved in a lot of sessions, but if you are new to what we do, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And this month, a lot of it. I think by month's end, it'll be 65 programs and 22 days of actual classes, so mass chaos, and we really welcome having you guys come in as we continue to highlight amazing scientists, explorers, and facilities around the world. So today's really exciting for me because I used to work at the group that we're joining from today. Ripley's Aquarium of Canada is the largest indoor aquarium in Canada. It's got over 16,000 animals, 400 species, and over the last few years, we've covered so many of their incredible creatures live from behind the scenes, from inside the aquarium, little walkthroughs, all sorts of neat ways to explore this amazing facility wherever you're joining from across Canada or the States. But today, we're going to go for a little bit of a journey to one of the more misunderstood and interesting fish in the aquarium, and that is the piranha. So I think piranha is a name that conjures up a lot of images to a lot of people. We're going to learn a little bit about the facts and misconceptions around this amazing fish, and we are joined by Toki, an educator at the aquarium, to explain a little bit more about what they're all about. So Toki, thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away, man. And
hey everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I seem to be having issues with my headphones right now because I can't hear anyone. Let's see. I was
You're good to go.
You can hear me? Okay, awesome. I'll just talk about my content, I guess. I'm not really sure if I'm hearing you guys right now, but I'll connect later on when we get to the questions and the question and answer portion. But yeah, today we are here at the aquarium to watch our piranhas get fed. We are joined by the education team, and also we will be helped by our aquatic biologist, or aquarist for short, Anthony. Um, yeah. Um, I just gave Anthony the go signal to feed the piranhas, so we'll see. Right now, though, I want you guys to look at the piranhas, look at their behavior, and see what they're doing. See what they're doing, and I guess compare that to what you've heard about piranhas. Yeah. Now, while we are waiting, just some quick information about piranhas. So piranhas are freshwater species, and they are native or endemic to the Amazon River Basin, so about in South America. Now, what that basically means that they won't be found anywhere else. And currently, right now, there are about 30 to 60 species of piranhas that have been identified, and there is a big gap because not a lot. There is still some I guess different opinions as to how a piranha would be classified, or what would make a fish a piranha. Right now, though, some scientists think that their unique teeth and their unique jaw, I guess, would classify a fish as a piranha. Oh, and as you can see, we do have the food right now, and you saw that the piranhas were running away from the food. That's one thing to note. Let's just move a little closer so we can see the food. Also, one thing to note is that the food that we're feeding them is dead. It is a mackerel from what I can see. Also, a quick plug, I guess. This mackerel is dead. We caught it sustainably. Basically, what that means is that it was caught in a good way that won't harm the mackerel species. And let's see what the piranhas will do. Oh, they're starting to eat. I mean, yeah. Another thing to note is that as soon as the food entered, you probably saw the piranhas run away from the food, and then right now they're taking turns eating the food because there is some sort of hierarchy with a group of piranhas, and they are taking they are letting each and every one of the piranha in the group eat. So they're sharing the food. In this type of scenario, I guess you would say in a fish aggregation or a fish grouping, or I guess they're more known as swarm in piranha terms, I guess. And it's really common to have one leader. This behavior, swarming, I hate to call it swarming because it has a really negative connotation to that term, swarming. This is basically a shoaling behavior from fish, which is common for all other fish, especially in the ocean. That's when they would group up together when they're eating, because grouping up together basically gives them more protection. It is also true for piranhas, the protection part, because piranhas, they're actually very timid. They're very, I don't want to say coward, but I guess they're not that brave. Um, so they have comfort. They feel some comfort when they're grouped up together. Usually in their nature, in their natural habitat, they could be found in groups of 20 or more. Now, usually the leader of a shoal or a swarm would be the bravest piranha. So that would be the first piranha to take a bite out of the food. And then once all the other fish in the group notice that one fish is eating, or maybe a few more fish is eating, then the rest will get the signal or will understand that it is eating time. Now, one thing that you should also note is that if you look at the food over there, they've put in some really clean bites or some really distinct round bites. That is also a sign that a piranha is eating. If you would see a carcass in the Amazon River and you saw those bites, those semicircular bites, people would usually assume that the carcass was eaten by a piranha. Also, I mentioned carcass, or I also mentioned that the food is dead, because one thing that people should note about piranhas is that they're actually they also like to scavenge. They would mainly scavenge more so than they would eat live living things. And another thing to note about their diet is that some piranhas actually are, or most piranhas are omnivores, and some would actually prefer to eat seeds and leaves and detritus, or dead leaves in the water, for example. Most people assume, based off of movies or whatever they've heard of piranhas, that they are meat eaters. And yes, they can eat meat, but they do like to choose sometimes, whichever is easier, I would say. Also, now that we are just talking, or since I just brought up their teeth and their unique bite, I would like to show you guys this one artifact I have from the aquarium. I'll bring it to the camera. Yeah, this is a piranha jaw. So I mentioned earlier that that one unique thing about piranhas is their teeth, or the dentition. You can see that it's really sharp. And if I unfortunately I can't close this jaw because it's glued in place. But if I were to be able to close it, it would be interlocking. And also, another characteristic of theirs is that they've got a really strong jaw muscles, which would be over here. That would give them the really strong bite force. Um, Basically, for any bony fish, piranhas have the strongest bite force, or the black piranhas. What we have in this tank are red-bellied piranhas. The black-bellied piranhas would have the strongest bite force. And yeah, I'll just talk about the piranhas. I'll move the skull again, so skull away again. Now, one thing I would like you guys to Google is, because when I was researching about piranhas, I stumbled upon their cousin Apacu, Pacu. If you see their teeth, it's really cool. You can really tell that the dentition is unique for piranha and their cousins, I guess. Now, on to the topic. One thing I should also mention about their teeth is that piranhas are known to be able to regenerate or regrow would be a better term, regrow their teeth, kind of like with sharks. Um, if you've heard of sharks and how they can regrow their teeth once they lose one tooth, I guess. There would be another behind it that would push up and grow. It would be the same for piranhas. However, with piranhas, their teeth would grow in quadrants rather than individual pieces. They would grow in quadrants. Now let's look back at our food. It is, or the food and the tank. It is getting a bit murky because there has been a lot of action. Let's see. Yeah, there's still a lot of food left. I should be really careful with how I approach the tank because again, they are very timid. They get scared of me real quick. I should probably slow it back away so that they can eat again in peace. Yeah. Now, one thing that I would also like to mention about piranhas is that um, a lot of people hear about how they are very ferocious and very, I guess, they have a mean reputation. But not a lot of people would hear about what their predators are. So in their natural habitat in the Amazon River, some of their predators would be some predatory bird, I guess. So, for example, some herons or some cormorants is what they're called. Also, some caimans or some really small alligator that are, I guess, you would find them in the Amazon River. And one thing that I heard, which is really cool, would be the pink river dolphins in the Amazon. They can eat piranhas as well. Also, humans do like to eat piranhas. That's one thing that I've learned about recently. In that part of the world, by the I guess people who would live close to the Amazon River, they like to eat piranhas. Now, in regards to their reproduction, piranhas do exhibit some parental care. For example, also they're nest builders. So, for example, the male piranha would be digging bowl-shaped holes on the sediment on the bottom of the river, and then the females will be laying their eggs, about 100 or about thousands, 100 to 1,000 egg, and then the males will be fertilizing the eggs by spawning, broadcast spawning, or I guess this method that I'm describing is broadcast spawning, that the males will be fertilizing the eggs. Then they will be guarding the eggs, and just after a few days, piranha eggs will hatch. It just takes a few days for piranhas. Now, I mentioned earlier that people do like to eat piranhas. I guess I should talk about how people would benefit from piranhas or how people would make use of what they can gather from piranhas, like their teeth. For example, apparently their teeth are used for sharpening tools because it is very sharp. Tools, for example, such as arrowheads or some combs, and also apparently it's used for carving wood and even for cutting hair. Now, um, another part of a human's relationship to piranha is apparently humans find piranhas to be very pesky or as a pest, especially when fishermen are fishing, trying to look for food, I guess, or something to sell. Some piranhas can get caught in the net, which, as you can imagine, can be a bit troubling because they can cause some they can damage the nets or some the fishing gear. And also, if the fisherman wasn't paying attention, they could get an injury, an accidental bite. And you've probably heard about how you're probably wondering or curious about if piranhas can attack humans. I wouldn't really say attack. There are some accidents where piranhas would bite the hand or the foot or both feet of a person, but nothing more than that. There were cases I've read online. There were cases of more serious injuries, but in those, I guess, in those cases are very specific, and there were certain conditions in those cases, so it's not common. I heard that in the Amazon, if there is a danger of the piranhas of there being too much piranha in an area, there will be signs to warn people so that they won't be swimming in the area. Um, but yeah, I guess I'll leave it there for now. If you guys have any questions, I am ready. Oh, let me. We could. Let me just switch to a different phone so that I can hear your questions real quick.
Fantastic. Awesome. So while you're doing that, Togi, thank you so much for highlighting a sort of a really rapid fire discussion of piranhas with us today. We're going to go to another phone in the aquarium in just a second for questions. Our teachers, thank you so much on YouTube. If you haven't let me know where you're joining from on YouTube, please do. We'd love to hear your questions. I'm going to check and make sure that the phone's good at the aquarium, and then we'll be able to go live to our classes so you guys don't have to type it for all our live groups. So Katie, how's it going? Can you guys hear me there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hi, Togi. Yeah, we're all good, man.
Awesome.
If that's the case, let's start with Ms. Gualtieri's class. So they're going to join us, coming in from Niagara Falls, Ontario. Come on in, just demute your microphone, guys, and you're good to go. In fact, for all our teachers, you can all demute your microphones. I can't hear you till I bring you into the broadcast. You're all set. So Gualtieri, go for it, guys.
Okay, lots of information. This is really great. 2 questions right now. Besides the Amazon River, is there anywhere else that these piranhas can be found? And a question from Max is, can you have a piranha as a pet?
So those are some really good questions. I'll answer the first one. Well, I will answer them accordingly. So the recent, or I guess in the past few years, I have read of reports, media reports of piranha sightings in the Great Lakes. I think in Lake Michigan specifically, in some of the rivers that gets fed off of Lake Michigan. Those are examples of piranha being kept as pets and then being released into the wild once the owner can't really care for them anymore. So I guess that answers both your questions. So they can be kept as pets. But in those cases where piranhas were found in their, I guess, in different habitats aside from the Amazon River, it doesn't really lead to anything, specifically because piranhas, they really like the waters to be warm. And in the specific case of the one in Lake Michigan, the water there gets really cold, so they won't really even survive throughout winter. But yeah, they are only native to the Amazon River. However, some people can release them in, I guess, in other parts of the world. But if it's cold, or if it gets cold, the water gets cold, they won't really survive.
Fantastic, Toki. Great first question to kick us off, guys. Birchwood Elementary near Montreal. If you guys want to start typing in the chat bar, I know your tech issues today, but please do share your questions there. And we'll go from one of my favorite towns in Canada, Niagara Falls, to one of my other ones in Kingston, to Ms. Whaley's class. Come on in, guys. If you have a question for us, go for it.
Amy, come on up. Go, 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 go. Hey, thanks so much for the information. We've got a question here.
Okay, so my question is, are piranhas endangered species?
Good job.
That is a really good question. I'm so glad you asked that. Piranhas currently are not listed on the IUCN's, I guess, their list of endangered animals, or at least even threatened. Basically, it just means that they have a really good population, or I should say, it could either mean that they have a really good population right now, or we don't have enough data to say if they're endangered. I would lean towards the former, or the one where they have a good amount of population still, basically.
Yeah, fantastic, Toki. Great question, guys. All right, we're going to head to Toronto. Ms. Steenberg, I'm coming to you next in a second. Birchwood, thanks for the question on chat bar as well. Mr. Chanfrini's class joining us in Toronto, grade 6-7. If you guys want to come up, go for it.
On average, how big is a piranha's tooth size?
Yeah.
Tooth size? That's a really good question. I would say about 1/4 of an inch or even less. Or it actually depends on the size as well. For example, for a black-bellied piranha, it's the biggest piranha, biggest of all the piranhas, I would say. Its tooth size could reach about, I guess I would say 1/3 of an inch, or in centimeters, I would say about maybe 1 or less than 1. I can't remember the conversion for centimeters to inches. But
Our
yeah.
Canadian classrooms are very disappointed in you, Toki. We covered inches for all the Canadians, and yeah, volunteered to hear it. Awesome, man. Yeah, they're very tiny. You guys can look these up online, and there's pictures online of a piranha tooth compared to a Persian can. Toki also showed the skull earlier, so you got a good sense of the size of the skull. They're not a really big fish, they're sort of a mid-sized fish. Cool question, guys. All right, I'm going to take one from Birchwood Elementary, and then our K3 seedlings, I can actually come to you. You guys have a perfectly good mic. So, in Montreal, Daphne wanted to know, how do you tell the difference between male and female piranhas, and can you?
That's a really good question. That's always a struggle, telling if a fish is male or female, especially if you're just looking at the fish from, I guess, from the outside like this. The best way to tell if a fish is male or female, if they don't have any difference in coloration, is if you dissect the fish, but usually that'll be done when you find a dead sample. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, we're going to head to Belleville now. Miss Steenberg's class, grade 3s. Come on in and go for it.
Hi there. This is my virtual class, and we have a question. I have Rylan, and he says, "Do they fight to determine their hierarchy in the group?"
Nice question, Rylan.
That's a really good question. Now, with fish groupings or fish aggregations, it is common for some fish to dispute, to fight. Usually, it'll be the leader or the more bold fish that would be more aggressive towards the other fish, but not any more than just trying to pick on each other's scales.
Awesome. All right. Great, guys. We're ripping through these questions. We're going really, really fast. There's a whole bunch on YouTube, too, and I will come to you guys, I promise, in a minute. But let's go right now to Miss Wolfgram's class. I just demute your microphone, and you're good to go. Hey.
Hi, guys. So we are in Whitney, Ontario, at the East Gate of Algonquin Park. And here's Jonathan, and he has a question.
How many teeth does a piranha have? That is a good question.
How many teeth do they have?
So it also depends on the species of the piranha, but they could have somewhere between 15 to 20 teeth on both jaws, basically.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry for not announcing Whitney. There's a lot of names to my little chart here. So many classes, at least 7 more joining on YouTube too, which is awesome. All right, so before we go through another round of questions with our live groups, I'm going to take some from YouTube. So, Mr. Hancock joining in Georgetown, Ontario, his class has had like 20 questions this session, which is awesome. I'm going to take the most recent one off the top, Toki. So, if a piranha stopped swimming, would it die like a shark? And you can segue this into sharks dying when they swim too, something that I know you guys have covered a lot in the past.
That's a really good question. Now, if a piranha specifically stops to swim, they won't really die, just like as a shark, I guess, as you've heard of a shark. With piranhas, they do have gills. As long as water can pass through their gills, or the way their gills are made is different from a shark, so they don't really suffer from the same issues that a shark would. But also, like Jesse mentioned, this is a good segue to sharks, and I guess a bit of an introduction as to how sharks would breathe. It is, I should say, earlier in, I guess, 10 or 15 years ago. So when scientists were first studying sharks, they thought that sharks needed to swim to breathe, and they thought that that was the general rule for all sharks, but it's actually not. Some sharks can actually lie still and keep on breathing, and some sharks can do both, I guess. Would need to move to breathe, and also they can still hang out and still breathe. I don't want to go into too much details because I feel like I would be stealing away the spotlight from the piranhas. But basically, the having to move to breathe, that's called ram ventilation, where the sharks would be ramming their head into the water so that water will enter their mouth and exit through their gills. Another method for breathing with sharks, the ones where they can hang out and still breathe, it's called breathing through their spiracles, or they have holes just near their eyes, sometimes below or behind their eyes, which can take water from their surrounding and push it through their gills. And another is buccal pumping, or basically their cheeks are doing the work with breathing. Their cheeks will be taking water from their surrounding and will be pushing it through their gills. But yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that was a very thorough answer. And by the way, Ripley's Aquarium of Canada is open, so you can go there and see some sharks with their ram ventilators versus some that draw on water through their spiracles. You can actually touch some sharks at Ripley's Aquarium. So if you get a chance to do that, of course, all social distance friendly and wearing masks, of course. But there's some really cool opportunities to see some amazing different animals amidst their huge retinue of creatures. Cool. All right. Mr. Yanni's class joining in Toronto, he wanted to ask, are there any other types of fish that live in the tank with the piranha, Toki?
That's a really good question. For this tank, we actually have the striped Piranhas, like this one over here. They're also picking on some scraps from the food right now. And yeah, I guess just to give more of an answer to that question, piranhas can live with other fish, but we have to be careful with how healthy the fish is because piranhas can see that as a sign, basically, if they're food or not. But we haven't had that issue so far, so we're good.
Yeah, so far, and maybe not during this broadcast, hopefully. We'll find out. Awesome. Well, let's go back to another live round of questions. We're ripping through these. I'm loving them on YouTube as well. Miss Gualtieri, you guys are up. If you want to come up and ask a second question, go for it. Just demute your mic, and you're good to go. No?
All right.
All right.
2 questions. Devin would like to know how long is the lifespan of a piranha? And Mia, I'm not sure if this was answered yet, would like to know how many different species of piranhas are there?
Those are both really good questions. I'm surprised that I'm glad that you guys are asking these hard questions. Really, in terms of their lifespan, piranhas can live up to 10 years on average. These ones specifically that you're watching or you're seeing, they're around 7 years old right now. We've had them since we've opened, and they've reached this size. We had a miracle baby, just a few months ago, but we're keeping it in the back to make sure that it's getting the proper nutrition that it needs. Now, in terms of how many species there are of piranhas, there are about 30 to 60 species, or 30 to 60 different types of piranhas. Now, there is a really big there's a big range, mainly because there are still disputes by scientists as to how someone would classify a fish as a piranha or not. So yeah, also we're still discovering some new ones, so that number could increase.
I'm glad we're touching upon this because you'd think that scientists were a friendly bunch, but when it comes to deciding how many species there are, they're actually quite cantankerous. So I'm glad we get a chance to highlight 30 to 60. It's a very wide range. Sounds ridiculous. Absolutely true. Virtual Elementary. So Emma in that class in your Montreal, as we said, wanted to know, can piranhas be different colors? These different species or individual species of piranha, different colors for them or not?
Yes, they can. Some piranhas are actually named after specifically based off of their color. So, like these ones, for example, the red-bellied piranhas, because their belly is red, as you can see here. And then you'll also find your black-bellied piranhas, and yeah.
Speaking of the red belly, we've got a class, our Sharing Educator Resources D2L VLE Brightspace team wanted to know what the red mark is in their bellies. Like, is it made of anything? Is it for anything? Is it just something that they happen to have? Anything you could explain would be great.
To my knowledge, it's and that basically means that I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, it doesn't mean anything for them. I think it's just a speciation type of thing, or something that they've developed as an individual species. Or I guess if I were to go further with giving an educated guess, I guess, or a scientific guess, it would be to help them hide in the really dark, murky waters. Especially, I guess, if they would be taking care of their kids in the sediments or guarding their eggs in the sediments.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Toby. All right, Miss Whaley's class, come on back up, and then we'll take a few of you two before we go to our last 3 live classes. Miss Whaley, come on. Hi.
So I have a question. Has a piranha ever bitten you before? And how were piranhas discovered?
Ooh.
Those are really good questions. I have not been bitten by a piranha. Hopefully, I won't get bitten by one anytime soon. I do like not having any blemishes, I guess, on my skin, or one bite mark on my skin. how do we discover piranhas? That's a really good question. I guess I would answer this as someone from the 50s, I guess, or when I'm adventuring in the Amazon River. I would say that a person can discover a piranha if they would put a fishing net in the water and they pull out the net and check what's in the net. And, if they see some fish that aren't familiar to them, that would probably be how they discovered piranhas.
Yeah, one thing we'd love to highlight, since we were covering this just last week with our Secret Path week on Indigenous storytelling, people have lived in the Amazon River Basin for tens of thousands, or almost 10,000 years, over 10,000 years, very, very long time. So this is something that would have been part of their daily lives, and something that, again, people would have eaten and utilized their teeth as tools for many thousands of years too. So very hard to pin down when you discover species like that. Scientifically described is a different matter, and you can probably find that online fairly readily. Toby, no worries, you don't know that off the top of your head. That's a tough one. All right, let's take a couple questions from YouTube before we go back to Mr. Chantrine's class. So many questions, and we've covered so much together. Let's see. Miss Bunahan wants to know, do we know what the current population of piranhas is? You mentioned that they weren't an endangered species earlier. And if you don't know, that's totally fine. It's a big question.
Yeah, I gotta say I don't know for sure. Like I said, with how animals and their population is classified under the IUCN list there are animals that aren't even on the list or that are least concerning, mainly because sometimes we don't have enough data for them. So yeah, I'm not sure, to be quite honest.
That's totally fine, man. All right, I like this question because it ties back into sharks again. We got a grade 2 student who wants to know if piranhas are related to sharks. So not only can you explain what the answer to this is, but explain why we really know this is not the case. What's the unique about shark skeletons versus piranha skeletons, maybe?
That's a really good question. Now, I would say that they are not related. Like Jesse was hinting at, sharks and piranhas, they do have different skeletons. For sharks, they are cartilaginous fish, or basically their skeleton is made of cartilage, or the same cartilage, like the cartilage on your ear. And then for piranhas, they are bony fish. Their skeletons are made of calcium, so very similar. They would have a hard skeleton, just like humans, I guess.
Yeah. It's really weird to think about it this way, but we're actually more related to piranhas than piranhas are to sharks. So we split off later, separately, after sharks have split off many, many millions of years before that. So you're more piranha than a great white shark is. Kind of cool. All right, Mr. John Green's class, come on in, and if you have a question for us, go for it.
Hi, we would like to know if two different types of species met, like a red-bellied and a black-bellied, would they fight?
Mortal combat of fish. Toki, tell us.
That's a really interesting question. From what I know, they won't. The only time specifically with piranhas is because they are very timid. They do like to look at their surrounding and see what they want to do, and be careful with how they act, because they do understand that there are differences in sizes between them and whatever else is around them. And with red bellies specifically and black bellied piranhas, I think they would just stay away from each other, to be honest. Specifically, the red bellies would even be, I guess I would guess to say that they would be afraid of the black bellied, because the black bellied ones are bigger than the red bellied.
There's always a bigger fish, the lesson of rivers in the ocean. All right, Miss Steenberg, come on back up, and then we'll go back to our K3 seedlings to wrap us up today. Miss Steenberg, go for it.
All right. We have two little questions. At Ripley's, do you only feed them meat? And would there be more of a feeding frenzy if it was a live feed?
Yeah.
Those are really good questions. Here at the aquarium, we do give them some dead fish and sometimes some vegetables to mix their diet up. We'd also put some nutrients in their food, by the way, some vitamins into their food, in the mackerel, or whatever fish we would be feeding them. If your other question, if we give them live food, will there be more of a feeding frenzy? That's a really good question. I would say no. Mainly because with piranhas, even though they are, even though they do have that really bad reputation that they are very mean, they're, I guess how they're portrayed in movies is that they like to eat anything that's in the water. That's not really the case. If it were alive, they would be more timid. Actually, they would be more cautious because they do understand that with living things there can be a trade-off. They can receive some damage if they do try and eat something that's alive. So they'd rather go for something that is easier to that is easier, something like something that's dead, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm amazed we didn't get this question throughout the broadcast today, but it's something that's usually covered in our Piranha Talks. So divers go in and clean the tanks in Ripley's aquarium, and I can attest to this personally, that when the diver goes in the piranha tank, there is no tank where the fish are more timid and hiding than the piranhas. They all sort of cower in the corner and swim in a little tiny ball with a wary eye on the diver that's far away. So they're not ferocious, they're not jumping out of the water to try and attack. It's, as Toki said, something where they're usually going for animals that are injured or dead. And that makes it a lot easier for them to rip off that flesh and avoid injury. Very cool question, guys. All right, we're going to wrap up back in Whitney, Ontario. Welcome back. Just ding your microphone and you're good to go, guys. Take us away. Let me know. Yeah. There you go.
All right, so Jonathan, one more time, and here's the question.
Cool, man. Let's do it.
Okay, ready? Oh, he forgot his question.
Oh, I remember.
You remember?
What color is the meat inside of a piranha?
Ooh, what color is the meat inside a piranha, Toki?
That's a really good question. This is more of a guess for me because I haven't seen a dead piranha. I would say white. It's like other river fish, it would be white meat.
Yeah. I'm like, little did I know when I started my day, I'd be frantically looking at Google for what dead piranha meat looks like. Not easy to find very readily, but that is a really unique question. So thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, we've had so many questions for you. Thank you to all our live classes, all our YouTube classes. Toby, before we wrap up today, is there any last message you'd like to share about how kids might be able to learn more about piranha, more about Ripley's Aquarium, or come in person?
Thank you, Jesse. There is something that I did. There are a few things that I did want to mention before we end this off. With piranhas specifically, I was hoping that someone would ask how piranhas got their really bad reputation. There are, and I guess I'll just answer that now and not wait for someone to ask that question. But basically, recently there are movies that has been released about piranhas, and as we know with movies, they're verging on the side of fantasy more than they are on the side of reality. And also, I read recently that apparently their bad reputation can be traced from this one journal entry by an American president, I believe, Theodore Roosevelt. This was at around 1912, 1913. Basically, what Teddy Roosevelt wrote on his journal of his adventures is that piranhas are very ferocious. They are the scariest fish. They're even scarier than sharks. He said, not in those terms, but that's just a paraphrasing, basically. But there is some background to that. Basically, when the Brazilians, when the Amazon River is in Brazil, apparently when Brazil found out that Theodore Roosevelt is going to be adventuring through the Amazon River, they wanted to impress the president or the ex-president, because at that point, Teddy Roosevelt just lost the election. They wanted to impress him, so what they did was they sectioned off a part of the Amazon River and trapped a bunch of piranhas in that part. Basically, the piranhas can't move in or out of that section, and they starved the piranhas. And at the very exact moment that the president was moving through that part, they wanted to impress him by putting down a live cow. And with the piranhas, since they were really starved and they were really stressed out, they ate the cow to the bone, and that scared the president, or that gave the president a really mean impression of piranhas. But yeah, that's how it started. But I want to stress the importance that, or the part where the piranhas were really starved, and these were very specific conditions. That's why that whole event happened.
Awesome story to wrap us up, man. So, Togi, thank you so much for explaining a little bit more with this really unique, really fascinating fish. Great questions from everyone. And as you know, what we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in back all our live classes. So demute your mics, everybody. And you can join me in saying a big thank you to Togi and the Ripley's Aquarium team for joining us today. You can also check out more at ripleysAquarium.com/Canada. So you can learn more about their education programs, how you can go live and beyond. And with that, let me bring everyone into the screen. Welcome in, everyone. Say thank you. Bye for now, guys. We'll see you all soon.